Fitz is a great capitalist.
Yeah,
you know,
he loves capitalism.
Starting businesses left and right, making papers, making inks, writing histories.
Yeah, okay. So
Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And we're discussing Chapter 20 of Ship of Destiny, Prisoners. And we're starting off with somebody who's not a prisoner.
Yeah, so I feel like I want to revisit this at the end of the chapter, but typically I feel the chapter names correspond to everybody in the chapter. And maybe not. Maybe I don't know, just recency bias. But it feels like typically, even though we're getting multiple viewpoints, you can like kind of relate the chapter title to everyone involved. And this time it's kind of weird because we have two sets of view, which is Malta and Reyn. And Reyn isn't really a prisoner. But then, is he?
He's a prisoner of his mind and his own decisions. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not in the exact sense of the word. Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, as we mentioned, Reyn is the first point of view here, and he is getting ready to go. Tintaglia, the last we saw him, Tintaglia had just arrived. Selden was going to come grab him, and they were going to discuss the plans, and in a couple days, they were going to head out probably. So the beginning pages of this chapter are basically describing what has happened in those last couple days. And we meet him as Selden and Janie, his mother, are saying goodbye.
Right. So a little bit of a time jump, but his mother is being the way all mothers are and asking, are you sure you have enough layers? You're going to be cold. And is just, worrying over her baby boy being safe on this journey.
Reyn doesn't know, obviously, because no one's really flown with a dragon before.
Right. And he doesn't know where they're going.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Tintaglia has been in Bingtown for a little bit. They've negotiated that dragons must have a clear space to land and an adequate meal, and they negotiated over that, what that means and everything in typical trader fashion.
Right.
So they have a clear meaning. There's going to be a welcome for dragons in the future in Bingtown and any other cities in the Cursed Shore. And Bendir, Reyn's half-brother, is going to be going upriver from Trehog to search for spots to dig. And things are moving in Tintaglia's favor here. And that's why she finally decided, okay, we can go search for Malta.
Right. So, and with Bendir going up the river, he is not only searching for the place in the river that needs to be dug out, but he's also going to be looking for signs of Elderling ruins as they go. So sort of a two birds with one stone sort of situation.
Yeah. We don't get much of the other Khuprus family in this book, but we do have a throwaway line here that there's a dozen or so pigeons that are left alive. So they've been run ragged in between sending messages between Trehog and Bingtown. So it's hard to get personal news, but there is a line that Reyn, and I'm assuming Janie, had, saying that his stepfather and half-sister had returned to the city in good health. So we get other news about other families.
Yeah.
Other family members. But either way, Tintaglia is ready to go. So Reyn is now ready to go, and he has been ready to go for a couple days.
Yeah.
He's anxious to get going.
Exactly. He also mentions that there's sort of a crowd around to watch him depart, which he's confused by because Malta's life or death would little affect them. And I thought that was really interesting because that was exactly the point that we brought up during the
negotiations.
The negotiations where he's like, we need to find Malta in front of everybody who's trying to survive a civil war. So
yeah, he kind of concludes that it just must be curiosity of, a person getting carried away by a dragon.
Right.
You know?
Which is super valid. Why wouldn't you want to see somebody being taken by a dragon.
I'd be going to every gathering that dragon was at.
Exactly.
You kidding me?
Well,
So he says, I am ready finally to Tintaglia, and she's very annoyed. She wants to get going because she wants to get back quickly.
right. There's lots to do. There are more important things to worry about. She's ready to go. And to be fair, I think so is Reyn. So that matches. But he does note that he has to separate her feelings of annoyance from his own. And what he's left with is mostly just fear. So he is a little bit nervous about doing this, but he's ready to go.
And right before they get going, Selden breaks from the crowd and says, here, I found these. These are Malta's. Maybe they'll help you find her. And it's a little baggie of candies. Honey drops. He looked up from the candy in puzzlement. Selden shrugged. I was at our old house yesterday, seeing what was left there. Almost everything had been stolen or destroyed, so I looked in some of the less obvious places. Selden grinned, abruptly a small brother. I always knew where Malta hid her candy. The smile softened at the edges. She loves honey drops, but they might keep you going in the cold. I don't think she'd mind if you ate them. It was so Malta, hoarded sweetness against an uncertain tomorrow. Reyn tucked the bag into the top of his pouch. Thank you, he replied gravely. He pulled a wool veil down over his face and tucked it into the throat of his jacket. It would keep his face warm, but limited his vision. That's wise, Selden observed encouragingly. You've been changing a lot, you know. When I first saw you, I didn't think Malta would mind much, but you're a lot more lumpy now. The boy lifted an unself-conscious hand to his face and ran his fingers over his eyebrows. She's going to have fits when she sees me, he predicted merrily. Okay, so there's a lot to talk about in that passage. The last thing we'll talk about first, maybe.
Yeah.
This strikes deep at his insecurities, at Reyn's insecurities. And it's the classic kind of the second half rom-com thing where it's not a miscommunication between the two, but mismanaged expectations.
Yes, yeah.
Because both Malta and Reyn think that they're the most hideous person and the other person will not want to see them.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I feel like the weirdest part of this is how young Selden seems in doing this.
Selden seems like an actual kid. Like he acts his age in this. And I guess it's because he's talking about his sister going home and he's, it's sibling stuff.
Yeah, and honestly, it does feel something a kid would say because I feel like kids really have no filter. Mm-hmm. And he's not even being mean. He's just like, oh yeah, good idea. You wouldn't want to freak out my sister. I don't know. It's really interesting to me because he seems so mature in the other chapters where he's like really learned a lot from his elderling dreams and his time in the city and whatever Tintaglia has given him with knowledge. But here he's back to being a 10-year-old kid because this is not, I guess, experience that you get from other people's memories, maybe.
Yeah, maybe he's evening out as well, finding a balance of, the learned knowledge and kind of accepting his family.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he's finally finding that. But I wanted to make note, because we were kind of discussing and we were just talking about Selden last chapter.
Yes.
And we were guessing around his age. Mm-hmm. So at the beginning of Ship of Magic, Wintrow is 13 years old.
Okay.
Malta is 12.
Right.
And Selden is 7.
Oh, so he's not even 10.
So yeah. So Selden is like 9 years old, maybe.
Whoa.
Yeah. Malta was just about to turn 13, like in 70 days or something like that.
Yeah.
And then a year passes for sure because they're talking about her turning 14 soon for courting Reyn. So she might be over 14, maybe in another couple months, 15. But I'm guessing 14 right now.
Right.
So Selden would probably be 9.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah.
But that means Wintrow is 16?
15 or 16, yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And Malta was also described as taller than Wintrow.
Yeah. But to be fair, I think Wintrow has had a growth spurt.
Yes, he has.
So
The other thing I want to talk about in that passage is Reyn's response of, "It was so Malta, hoarded sweetness against an uncertain tomorrow." And I literally, in my ebook here, I made sure to highlight it and write down a comment of just question mark, LMAO, no.
yeah.
Because Malta never hoarded sweetness against an uncertain tomorrow.
She just didn't want other people to take her things.
Yeah, well, that, but also, when has she ever saved anything?
Well, whenever he gifted her stuff from the Rain Wilds, she hoarded it away.
Yeah,
but that was
that's
more because she
like,
didn't want to be caught with it.
Yeah, more possessive too. Just like, these are my things now.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't want anybody taking them, including them taking it back because I'm denying the suit.
Right. But
that's not necessarily like forethought of planning against an uncertain tomorrow, you know?
No, it feels more like a kid who doesn't want to share with her siblings. So these are my candies, I'm hiding them.
And it's so Reyn to romanticize every gesture that she does because she's just spoiled and immediately wants the sweet things to herself or the nice things for herself.
Yeah. I think that line, I also underlined it because I was kind of like, first of all, how would he even know if that's how she is? So we've argued about this, I think, before, but I feel like they don't know each other very much. We obviously were reading a book, and especially with the way Robin Hobb writes, obviously timelines are very muddled and
hard to tell exactly how much they've spent together and how long this whole thing has taken place over, you know?
Exactly. So I know that that can kind of make it feel like they have known each other for a really long time, especially with the way they act. I think that goes into our belief of them knowing each other really well and having been together for a long time. But the reality is he doesn't super know her. I mean, he knows what she has play acted for him because she, for most of when they have been together, has been playing a part.
Yeah.
In her own mind, she has admitted that. So it's just really interesting to me to see these little bits of what's supposed to be a cute little, oh, I know her so well. Like that really makes me think of the person that I miss and love. And it's not even true.
Anything that the reader can recognize as the character.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just find that really interesting because it does read like something you would say about somebody you know well. But he clearly doesn't know her very well, so it doesn't hit the same. I don't know. I think it's an interesting aspect, and I wonder if it was thought about on Robin Hobb's part, or if it's just something that sort of is there, you know, like accidentally put in, if that makes sense.
Tintaglia snaps, annoyed at Reyn, saying, "Hurry up." And then genteelly says, "Move to the side, small minstrel, and turn your eyes away. I would not blind you with dust blasted by my wings." And Selden turns into his usual minstrel self. It's like, "Oh no, I thank you, but it would not be a loss having your vision as the last thing I ever see."
Right, yeah.
Flatterer, the dragon dismissed his words, but she did not hide her pleasure. As soon as Selden was clear, she snatched Reyn up from the ground as if he were a toy. She held him around his chest, his legs and feet dangling. She shook out her wings and crouched on her powerful hind legs.
So, just a quick dragon anatomy question.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I thought dragons didn't have arms.
Depends on the depiction.
Yeah, so...
Depends on what country dragons you're looking at from, you know?
Yeah, so like... I knew they had the hind legs, and then I thought the wings were the arms. Yeah. So whenever it says that...
Pterodactyl kind of.
Yeah, that kind of vibe. But obviously she does have four. And I mean, I can like picture a four-legged dragon. I don't know, but for some reason in this book, up until now, I was not picturing her having front paws. I don't know.
I feel like they described her, but also... I skimmed it. I don't know. I'm kind of with you on there, but in the Rainwild Chronicles, I know for sure they had four legs.
Yeah.
Because they're wading through the river all the time. So
yeah,
I don't know. But Tintaglia, I kind of agree. I just had to like reread it. I'm like, where did she grab Reyn then? If she was on her
Yeah, if
hind
she's on her
legs.
legs. And I don't know, because it makes sense that they would have to have the front paws or whatever. It just, for some reason in my head, I didn't think she had them. So I was very confused when I read that she got back on her hind legs. I'm like, and squished Reyn. But also, it made me wonder how big her front, like, paws are.
Thinking like T-Rex. No,
Yeah, well, not T-Rex, but like typically the arms are smaller than the legs, and I guess her face is what they said the size of a horse.
Yeah, her head is the size of a horse.
Yeah, so not that the arms would be small by any means, but is she grabbing with both hands to keep him?
I would assume, yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird thoughts that I had about what does this dragon look like?
They're able to walk on all fours.
That's true.
So can't be that small of arms. More like legs, 4 legs instead of arms.
Yeah, like a dog or something with wings.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting.
And opposable claws.
True, like little hands.
Yep.
Although, is it like opposable? I don't know. Who knows? It doesn't
don't know.
matter. It's not the most pressing issue. It was just something that I thought funny enough to bring up, that I, until this moment, for whatever reason, pictured her not having front legs to grab him with.
So they spring up into the air and
The G-force whips Reyn's head back, but he doesn't pass out, so he could be an astronaut.
yeah, yes. Well, where did you want to go? Where do I want to go? To wherever Malta is, of course. I told you before, I can sense she is alive. That doesn't mean I know where she is. Desolation swallowed Reyn. The dragon took sudden pity on him. See what you can do, she suggested. Through her, he again shared her awareness of Malta. He closed his eyes and slipped into that sensing that was not hearing, nor sight, nor scent, but an eerie shadow of all three. He found himself opening his mouth and breathing deep as if he could taste her scent on the cold air. Something of himself, he was sure, flowed out to meet her. They merged in a warm, sleepy lassitude. As they had when they shared the dream box, he experienced her perceptions of her world. Warm, a slow rocking motion. He breathed deep with her and tasted the unmistakable smell of a ship. He loosened his awareness of his body and reached more boldly for her. He felt warm bedding around her. He caught the deep rhythm of her breathing and then shared it. She slept with her cheek on her hand. He became that hand, cradling the warm softness of her cheek. He caressed it. She smiled in her sleep. Reyn, she acknowledged him, without recognizing his true presence. Malta, my love, where are you? In bed. There was warm interest in her voice. Where? He persisted, regretfully ignoring that invitation. On a ship, Chalcedean ship. Where are you bound? He asked her desperately. He could feel his contact with her fading as his irritating question clashed with her dream. He clung to her, but her mind pulled away from sleep, disturbed by his insistence that she answer. Where? He demanded. Where? Jamaillia bound. We switch over to Malta, as her point of view is waking up, saying Jamaillia bound twice and not knowing why. Not remembering her dream, but recalling it was a nice one and probably important, and then touching her face, and one cheek is tingling oddly.
Right. And she mentions that she's actually glad she can't remember her dreams because she's still plagued with nightmares and has been having a lot of trouble sleeping. And so the fact that she has the vague sense that this was a pleasant dream is enough, and she doesn't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah, she doesn't want the details, because if it is a nice dream about Reyn, she's going to wake up crying.
Exactly.
Because she's losing that part of her life and has already lost it, I guess, according to her.
Yes. And then we find out what has happened since her demand of better treatment of the satrap.
A couple days later.
Yes. And that is that she and satrap have been moved to more opulent room.
Very opulent rooms.
So much so she almost became accustomed to it, but was still reveling in how nice it looked.
Yeah. The captain had brought up a lot of wares from down below and said, like, hey, take your pick of whatever you want and decorate your room, make it comfortable. So there's a ton of nice stuff.
Exactly. And not only that, but she spared no expense. This is a satrap. She has to make him look more important, but also
And act it.
and act more important, but also she deserves it from what she's been through. So she doesn't spare any expense for herself either. She makes sure that there are good clothes for them to wear and expensive furs on on his bed and her pallet. And she's made sure that this is a amazing room to be in, basically.
She says there was a mirror in the lid of the trunk, but Malta avoided looking in it. The first time she had gleefully opened the trunk, her own reflection had been the first thing she saw. The scar was far worse than she had imagined. It stood up, a double ridge of pale, rippling flesh that reached almost to her nose and disappeared in her hair. She had touched the lumpy cicatrix. Is that how you pronounce that?
I've never seen that word before, so maybe.
I will say cicatrix then, in disbelief, and then scrabbled back from the trunk in horror. The satrap had laughed, and he mocked her a bit, saying, "Yeah, your beauty is gone. You best stay useful," basically. And she could not respond to his hateful words. Her voice was stilled, her gaze trapped in her own image. For a time she had stared in silence, unable to move, unable to think. And the satrap had broken the spell by nudging her, saying, "Get up and busy yourself. I am to dine with the captain tonight, and you have not yet set out my clothes. And in Saw's name, cover that split in your head. It is humiliating enough to me that the whole crew knows you are disfigured without your flaunting it." And she had obeyed him, and acted, in her mind, like Kiki, an obedient dog, sitting at his feet while he and the captain had conversed in Chalcedean, and being fed scraps from the table from things that the satrap did not like that he had tasted, and even once having the satrap wipe his hands on her robe
Yeah.
as like a napkin. And then at one point, he had nudged her away with his foot as if she had sat too close, and she felt hurt by that.
Yeah. And not only that, but he had clearly been talking about her with the captain, and they had laughed at her. So there's a little bit of disdain from him in this theater of that they're playing with the captain. And she is hurt. She finds herself hurt because she's done all this stuff to help him and had to sacrifice her pride to do it. And instead of doing anything, she just plasters a smile on her face and pretends like she's unaware.
Later, the satrap would disdainfully tell her this ship was not a pirate vessel but one of his patrol ships, and that all the loot was cargo confiscated from smugglers and real pirates. In fact, he'd gone on loftily, one of his favorite nobles in Jamaillia had contributed heavily in commissioning this ship and had an interest in her spoils. She had managed to keep her mask in place all evening, even when she had dutifully followed the satrap back to their cabin and assisted him in disrobing for bed and resisted his lackadaisical advances. She had kept her aplomb. Only after she was sure he was asleep that had the tears come. Accommodating and useful. Was that truly all that was left to her life? With creeping dismay, she realized it sounded like her mother. Accommodating and useful to her Chalcedean father. What would he think if he could see her now? Would he be horrified? Or would he think that she had finally learned to be graciously female? It hurt to wonder such things about someone she loved. She had always believed that he loved her best of all his children. But how did he love her? As an independent young woman, a trader's daughter? Would he more approve the role she played now?
I think this is a really interesting thought process for Malta to have.
Yeah.
And I really like this scene. I mean, obviously I don't like that she's suffering, but I really like that transition. It really feels like she's transitioning into adulthood, and these real world experiences are helping her understand better what she has seen in her past, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that she wouldn't have been able to understand unless she was in this position of why her grandmother and mother disliked her father in some ways and also wanted to keep things from him. Because before she was all about, I'm going to tell my dad he's the best man in the world. And now she's realizing he may have loved her, but he didn't love her the way he could love a son. He loved her as his daughter.
Maybe. She doesn't
Right.
know. Like, she's asking those questions, right? But the fact that she's having those questions is the step.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I guess that is really big. Like, she recognizes, I'm sure, the cultural difference between her father and mother and how,
Finally, kind of what it means to be Chalcidian.
yeah, and wondering how much of that does her father still hold on to, and
Mhm.
would he think this was her place? Yes. And think that that's enough for her. And that really saddens her because she has always thought of herself as, you know, the smart one, a woman who wanted to go back to Chalcidian traditions and that she wanted to be a wife, but also she has had dreams of being a trader's daughter, of a woman on her own. She wanted to travel. She didn't want to, yeah, she didn't want to get married right away. She wanted to travel, and facing the reality of the world, I think, has had a really interesting effect on her.
Yeah, she's one of the characters that needed the experiences to be able to have the empathy.
Yeah.
And that does happen for some people, you know? And it's an interesting revelation that she brings up her mother, but then ignores her the rest of the time and just talks about
Yeah.
her father, because that was kind of their relationship.
Right.
But there is the glimmers and the beginnings of like, oh, I'm sounding like my mother. Oh no,
Yeah.
this is a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, she has been talking about her Aunt Althea and her grandmother a lot, right?
Yeah.
As she's been captured, as she's been going through this hardship, thinking she wishes she was more like them and strong and independent. And this is really the first time she's thinking about herself in the role of her mother. And I found that detail to be really interesting too.
And it's about
Like,
the worst aspect of her future.
Yeah.
And the other ones were like, Aunt Althea and my grandmother would know what to do to be strong. And now, yeah, you can really see the depth of her dislike for her mother's place.
Yeah.
And then now kind of realizing, like, yeah,
that's all the role there is.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Just like, you know, I am kind of forced into it. Maybe that's what my mother felt, but either way, it's a bad place to be.
Yeah, I don't want to be like this.
Yeah, it's still not full blown on sympathy, but it's
a better understanding. Maybe.
Right. Yeah.
But yes. So after this, she now knows what she looks like and she no longer wants to see. And so we go back to the present where after she had that good cry alone, thinking about what her future is now, she's now getting ready for the day because the satrap is asleep. So she has time to change. And before we do that, we did skip over a little detail, which I thought was important, which is when she was picking out her outfit for the day, she picked something blue out. And I thought that was an interesting detail to add in because it does feel like perhaps she was influenced because of Reyn reaching her through Tintaglia's skill. That maybe that's what made the blue stand out to her. I mean, that's a tinfoil hat theory. That's just something that I'm adding. But I thought it was interesting that right after she wakes from this dream of Reyn reaching out to her through the skill, she picks something blue to wear.
Interesting, yeah, because I didn't read that Reyn passage, but when they're taking off with Tintaglia, he says, he closed his eyes against the cold wind. When he forced them open again, he looked down on a glittering carpet of blue and gray, a pattern rippling slowly across it. The sea, he realized, was very, very far below him. So, talks about blue there. And now...
And Tintaglia's blue.
Yep, and Tintaglia's blue. And then she selected something warm, soft, and blue and pulled it out. She held the robe against her. It was too large, but she would make it do. Interesting. Yeah, it could be.
I don't know. I just thought it was like a really fun, subtle detail in there that was...
a little lingering connection.
Yeah.
Or influence.
And it's warm and soft, the things that Reyn noticed first when he joined her consciousness. So.
An unintentional influence, like the kind that we would see Verity intentionally doing against the Raider ship captains. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Out Islander Raiders.
But I think it also made me think about the impact that skill sharing or skilling into somebody's mind can have even unintentionally, because these are people who aren't trained.
Or dragon magic.
Or dragon magic in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there is no training for them, right? They're just doing this blindly.
Hmm.
That maybe there are unintended consequences, but either way,
Maybe. Reyn almost dies.
true, true.
Yeah. So she is kind of
Getting ready for the day.
getting ready for the day and trying to just sink into her life here, and resolutely tells herself again, attitude before appearance. That's what saved her so far. That's what she's going to continue to do. She says she looks like a rough used servant. Basically, she has chapped lips and she hasn't had much time to make herself look pretty
Right.
anymore. But her attitude is what is saving her, what is protecting her from the crew mostly, besides, talk behind her back. But
Right. But also,
it's what's got them there.
yeah, and she doesn't really trust that Cosgo could do this on his own. Without her, he would fail at this farce.
Yes, yeah. Her continued attitude towards him, acting as if he is the greatest, most powerful man in the whole wide world, grants him the ability to act like that and play his own role as
Right.
satrap, which keeps up appearances for both of them. It's exactly what Kiki had said,
Yeah,
that you need to enable him to be powerful so his power can protect you.
exactly. And interestingly, I think she mentions that she's not only getting the crew to respect her power through Satrap, but she is kind of manipulating the Satrap to also believe he is powerful.
Mhm.
But there is an unintended side effect that when she lowers herself to him and says, "Oh, I'm just a woman. I don't know anything. You're so smart." He's now starting to have affections for her.
The more she flattered him, the more attractive he found her. But she was stronger than he was, so she can push away his hands, his wandering hands, or his advances, even if they're verbal, and say, like, oh no, I'm too far beneath you.
Right. So that's also kind of a scary thing happening because the better she does it lifting him up, the more he likes her. And once again, her safety is
But
precarious.
that's why we see a little insight here into Kiki's life
Yeah.
and how Cyrilla was, very disgusted with her, which fair, they were in Jamaillia. There wasn't really a need to
Yeah.
cozy
keep
up to the
present
satrap, really.
pretenses. Yeah.
But on the Chalcedean ship and everything, totally understandable now that Kiki understood what was going on and how much power a man could hold and protect you with that power
Yes.
in a Chalced society.
Yeah. And I think, I mean,
And the slippery slope that she probably walked along and eventually, fell into his bed.
yeah.
Not so casually, I will say,
Right.
but
But to be fair, we don't know how often Kiki was around the satrap in Jamaillia, right?
yeah.
Like she was selected for this because she's the heart companion of Chalced. Like she was the person who knew about Chalcedean culture, right?
She was in the room when Cyrilla was in one of Cyrilla's point of view chapters, I think, in Jamaillia.
Yeah. But also, I mean, we do know that he kind of picked women that he thought were hot and
Yeah.
got rid of all the people who were actual scholars besides Cyrilla.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that Kiki wasn't somebody that was knowledgeable about Chalced the same way that Cyrilla was knowledgeable about Bingtown.
Right.
She just, maybe she liked the custom of, the woman's role or
Yeah,
whatever.
Who knows?
Yeah, we don't really know enough about her. So I do wonder how much, I don't know.
It's just an insight into her character or her storyline, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something that we can kind of relate to that.
And I mean, I just a quick aside, I feel like if she's somebody who knew Chalcedean culture and potentially lived it, having the most powerful man in the world like you and being able to seduce him wouldn't be that bad of an option for her because that means ultimate safety all of the time, right? So
Right.
I don't know. It could also just seem like something that she has to do to ensure that she's always safe based on what she knows of culture. I don't know. Anyway, she's not here anymore. Malta is, and she's not really enjoying this role, but she needs it to survive.
So she wakes up the satrap saying, "Lordly one, I hesitate to disturb your rest, but I ask your permission to fetch your breakfast." "You may. See that it comes hot to me, not lukewarm like yesterday." "I shall, my lord." She could not remind him that he had lain abed smoking long after she had brought him his tray yesterday. Nothing was ever his fault. She settled a cloak about her shoulders and left quietly. This was her stolen time. Out of the satrap's sight, moving purposefully, she could enjoy a measure of freedom unchallenged by anyone. When she encountered any of the sailors, they stared at her bound brow and made comments behind her back, but they gave way. So she heads over to the kitchen, able to walk around freely and enjoying that opportunity. She heads over to the kitchen, getting ready. The cook nods at her, and then there's a sudden outcry on deck, and another one. And eventually the cook runs out to see what's going on, and Malta kind of follows and looks as well. And there's a sail on the horizon. And then
Another ship.
another ship. Both ships flew odd patchwork flags showing a spread-winged raven. Her mind worked frantically. The Chalcedean ship fled from those other two. Did that mean that they were from Bingtown, or were they pirates? Did pirates prey on other pirates? She did not know whether to hope the Chalcedean ship outran them or was captured. If they were captured and the other ships were pirates, what would become of her and the satrap? A hasty plan formed in her mind. So she rushes back to the cabin with some extra clothes and says, "Hey, ships are coming. We need to dress as normal sailors so they don't pick us out of the crowd."
Right. And those clothes she got from sneaking down into the sailor's hold that she had walked through before to get to the captain and stealing some of their clothes. So she's trying to make it look like they are just regular crew, thinking maybe this will save them.
She still plays her part. She goes in and saying, "Your forgiveness, lordly one, I pray you. Our ship flees from two others. If they catch us, there will be battle. If there is battle, I fear we will be overwhelmed. I fear they are pirates from the pirate isles with little love or respect for the satrap of Jamaillia. So I have borrowed clothing for you to disguise yourself. As a simple sailor, you may escape their notice, and I also." As she spoke, she began to sort the clothing hastily. But as she says, "Rise, glorious one, and I will help you dress first," he's like, "No, put those disgusting rags aside and lay out proper garb for me. If I must rise and dress before I've had any breakfast, I will dress as befits me. You do a great injustice to our Chalcedean sailors to imagine they shall be captured and beaten so easily. There is no need for me to hide myself behind a churlish disguise. Bring me decent clothes and shoes. I shall go out on deck and watch my patrol vessels disperse these common pirates." Well, if he would not hide himself, then she would make his ransom value obvious. Might not pirates be more gentle with valuable captives? So she picks out extremely gaudy and very, very nice clothes.
Right. So I think this is something I really appreciate about Malta's character, is that she is so good at adapting.
Yeah,
And
the pivot is very nice.
Yeah, she's really smart. She really is good at reading situations and being able to say, I'm going to make a plan and make that decision. And I think that's really big. And she wants to be more like Althea and her grandmother, but I think she's better as Malta because she is able to pivot and think, okay, if that's not going to work, gotta go with the next slow. If this is Althea would be throwing a fit. She never would have lowered herself to being nice and flattering the satrap,
no. She would have stayed out on deck too.
True.
And been like, okay, let's fight.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Malta has her own strengths that she doesn't realize. And this here, just realizing, okay, well, there's no point in arguing with him. He's not going to put this on. What's the next best idea that I can come up with? And that's to make him look as flashy as possible. And as she's dressing him, she's hearing battle on board.
Yep, there's a big shock through the deck. So she's wondering, oh, did they ram us? And then there's battle and stomps aboard, above them on board. "Lordly one, I think we were wise to hurry." "Very well." With a martyred sigh, he pushed his blanket aside. "You may garb me."
It's so ridiculous, but she's handling it.
Mm-hmm. Then we switch back over to Reyn's point of view. And again, like I mentioned before, Reyn almost dies because Tintaglia is like shaking him and like, that's better, as he comes back to himself. "I thought you were dead. I had forgotten that humans are not so well attached to their bodies as dragons are. When you venture too far from them, you can lose your way back."
Yeah. So again, this makes me feel like this is skill related. I mean, we don't know. It's probably all related, right? It's a big
Yeah,
circle.
we've talked about that before, how I think, and I think you kind of agreed with me maybe, that the skill and the wit are in or very similar to dragon magic
Right.
in a way. And it kind of encompasses everything. So the dragons have their own sort of thing, and this feels very much like getting lost in the skill river or just being detached from your body.
Yeah, because I guess one thing is we never have any point of view from Reyn when he's doing this that there is that river, right? There's no,
Because it's not exactly skill.
yeah, and there's no forgetting of himself in the same way that we've seen, like the way
intense
people
pleasure.
unravel, or intense pleasure, but none of that unraveling wordage
Mm-hmm.
is used like we see with Fitz and the skill. Interestingly, when Malta had that reaction to touching the ship, Vivacia, I think.
Paragon.
Oh no, oh yeah, because it was with
Yep. It was
yeah.
with
So it was
Amber
Paragon.
there. Yeah.
So whenever she touched the ship and had that weird sensation, that did feel more like skill, because she did sort of lose herself in whatever communication was happening and needed her name to pull her back and wrap around herself. Because
Yeah.
Amber used the skill to sort of
Center herself, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was more of two dragons fighting over her and Tintaglia saying, well, I'll have her killed before I let another claim her to
Right.
Paragon's dragons. So
Right.
that was a little bit different, but it was, yeah, I can see the similarities there as opposed to this.
Yeah. But yeah, so here it's just he's coming back, and maybe Tintaglia did say Reyn a couple times while she was shaking him. He doesn't seem to know, but he is waking up and he is not feeling great.
Yeah. He felt dizzy, cold, and small, but he did not think it was the effect of the flight. He suspected he had been unconscious. He tried to reach back to the last thing he could remember. It eluded him. So he's very groggy right now, and he can't quite understand. And he looks below, and there's some ships in formation, and they look like they are, or he asks if they're Chalcedean. Where are they bound? How can you expect me to know such things, or care? She glanced down almost idly. I have seen many such ships moving southward through these waters. I chased them away from Bingtown as I agreed to do, but there are far too many for one dragon to disperse them all. She seemed offended that he had forced her to admit this. She diverted the topic. I thought all your concerns were for Malta. They are, he said faintly, but those ships... He let his words trail away. He grasped what he should have seen all along. Chalced's move was not just against the Rain Wilds in Bingtown. Chalced had been heavily involved with the new traders against the satrap. That they had turned on the new traders meant only that Chalced was treating allies as it always did. Now, Chalced was moving against Jamaillia in force. Bingtown was but a stop along the way, a place to cripple and occupy so that Chalced would not have an enemy at its back while it went after bigger prey. He stared down at the ships. Many like those, Tintaglia had said. Jamaillia's sea power had been declining for almost a decade. He did not know if Jamaillia could wage war against Chalced, let alone win such a struggle. Could Bingtown survive the disruption to trade that such a war would wreak? His mind spun with the implications of all he saw. So, we're starting to see a bigger picture. Some of the characters are picking it up here. Chalcedeans worm their way into Jamaillian's confidence, the satrap's friendship, and become allies there. They become the de facto patrol and sea power, and the satrap doesn't see a need to keep up his own navy because he has the Chalcedean allies. They ply him with all the bribes and drugs that he could want. Slowly, the Chalcedeans have pretty much power over all of the cursed shore, plus south further towards Jamaillia.
Right.
Then they go after Bingtown or target Bingtown and try to get the trade there, the secrets there. If they can't, they'll just come in and take over the whole town.
Right. Because
and the new traders are like allying with the Chalcedeans too through that whole thing.
Right. And that's so that they don't have an enemy to their back while they try to go
take over Jamaillia.
Yeah.
But no one anticipated, one, that Bingtown would rally and that they would find a dragon. So Bingtown,
definitely not the dragon.
Yeah, definitely not the dragon. So Bingtown is still a sovereign city, and two, that the Pirate Isles would be so organized and dangerous,
Yeah.
because this is what Kennit wanted. Is he saw the he anticipated the Jamaillian fleet, right?
Yes.
He heard that news and he's like, oh, they're gonna go war and stuff, and we'll pick them off as they come back this way. But the Chalcedean fleet is going through the Pirate Isles first because they're sailing south to Jamaillia,
Right.
and they're loaded with
All the good stuff.
all the good stuff. So either way, it's rich pickings for the pirates through those isles.
Right. And I think this is also sort of interesting to hear a little bit more about Chalcedeans, that they're known to double back on their allies.
Yeah.
They don't really have allies.
Double
They just
cross.
double cross. Thank you. They double cross all their allies.
Yeah. I mean, they're a small nation. They're surrounded by enemies because they make everybody enemies.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting tactic to take, I guess. But
I mean, their whole culture is based around how well you do in battle.
true.
So
Yeah. Feels like they would do really well partnering with the Out Islands.
yeah, they would, until they betrayed them as well.
Well, and also I think the Out Islands have more respect for a matriarchal society.
Yeah, they would.
so.
They have diametrically opposed ideologies on how to run their governments, but
But they also are all about battle, so I don't know.
So Tintaglia then turns his mind away from this and says, okay, you were there to learn about Malta. What did you learn? Where are we going? How can I save her and get back to Bingtown and saving my species? And Reyn's like, a moment, I can't quite think. She was on a ship, a deep-hulled ship from the motion, not a galley. Yet she said it was Chalcedean. Did you not sense that also? I was not that attentive, she replied carelessly. So, a Chalcedean ship, a large one. There are many like that. Where? Bound for Jamaillia. Oh, that's helpful. South. Fly south over the inside passage. Oh, and when we fly over the ship she is in, you will simply know it, the dragon continued skeptically. And what then? He stared down at the water below his toes. Then, somehow you will help me rescue her, and take her home with us. The dragon made a rumble of displeasure. A foolish and impossible errand. We waste time, Reyn. We should go back now. No, not without Malta. What you ask of me is just as foolish and impossible. You demand that I slog through the rain-wild swamps and somehow locate a city engulfed Sa alone knows how many years ago, and that I then somehow rescue any cocoon dragons buried deep within it. Are you saying now that you can't do that? He gave a snort of laughter. One impossible quest at a time. You first. I will keep my word, she promised sulkily. He regretted having offended her. That was not the way to win her best effort. I know you will keep your word, he assured her. He took a breath. I have touched souls with you, Tintaglia. You are too great-hearted to go back on your promise. She did not reply, but he sensed her mollification. Why she found such gratification in praise, he had no idea, but it was a small price to pay. So he learns a little bit from Selden, but also we have a interesting parallel with Malta's situation.
Yeah.
They have to mollify and flatter the person that has power over them.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I thought that was a really interesting duality we have here. And I think makes the chapter title make a little bit more sense because in a way, Reyn also is a prisoner. I mean, he is being held by this creature above water in the air. If she drops him, he's dead. So
she does anything, he's dead.
Yeah. So he really does have to flatter her for his life. And he is a prisoner to her emotions. And it's not quite the same as what Malta's going through.
Yeah, because she needs him too.
Yes.
There's a little bit of a mutual kind of arrangement there, at least.
Yes.
But she's also arrogant enough to not care if he angers her too much.
Exactly. So I thought that was a really interesting, because of the chapter title, I was looking more for like what are the similarities between their experiences, what is happening. And it is that sort of thing that Robin Hobb likes to do where she has the mirror image of events happening with multiple characters.
Yeah, nice little foils. Well, not quite foils.
No, but
it's a different thing.
But there is a little bit of that mirroring and
Yeah.
similar situations happening to different people at the same time, which I really enjoy in her writing, I think.
He does end the section saying that he's trying to ignore his aching, swinging legs. So
Yeah.
there you go.
I wonder what kind of research she had to do to know.
Just sat on a swing, but
Yeah.
like face down, just across her
That
hips
was
the whole
so
time.
fun when you like twirl, like spin around in a circle and let yourself go. Oh.
So we switch back over to Malta as she is dressing the satrap. Her hands are shaking because she is scared and she's hearing cries of agony and thumps. And here she is. She's tugging the satrap's collar straight. The satrap of all Jamaillia, heir to the Pearl Throne, Magnadon Satrap Cosgo, was now presentable. The satrap regarded himself in the small mirror she lifted. Unruffled by the smothered sounds of fighting, he smoothed the thin line of his mustache. Something fell heavily to the deck above them. I will go up now, he announced. I don't think that's wise. It's battle up there. Can't you hear it? She had spoken too hastily. He set his jaw stubbornly. I am not a coward. No, only an idiot, in her mind. Lordly one, you must not risk yourself, she begged him. I know you do not fear for yourself, but consider Jamaillia bereft and lost as a rudderless ship if aught should befall you. You are a fool, the satrap told her tolerantly. What man would dare to physically assault the satrap of Jamaillia? Those pirate dogs may dispute my rule, but only from a safe distance. When they look me in the face, they will cower in shame. He actually believed it. And Malta's just sitting there, astonished, aghast, staring at him like, what?
Well,
You are insane, man.
yeah, honestly, same reaction. Because why on earth would he think his title alone is enough for everybody to just treat him like the satrap? And I guess I was thinking about it more because that was my initial reaction, but he hasn't left Jamaillia before. This is
Right.
his first time outside of Jamaillia, and in Jamaillia,
He's
of
surrounded
course,
by 50,000 hype men.
yeah, that. And everybody knows who he is. Nobody's going to question. Nobody's
Right.
going to act out in front of him. And I'm sure he's parroting things that people have said to him over the years.
Oh, 100%. All of the advisors like, oh, those people we don't need to raise our fleets. The pirates are just going to yap, but they're not
Yeah.
actually going to do anything because you just...
if they saw you in
scared.
person,
Yeah.
they would never do anything. It's because they're
all
at a
talk.
distance. Yeah. Which is easy to say when you think he's never going to experience them firsthand. And he's dumb enough to believe it because I guess what in his life has happened to make him think otherwise.
Yeah.
So, ugh.
So she just stares at him, and while he's waiting and looking at her to open up the door for him, and eventually he's like, all right, well, I guess I have to do everything myself, because she's hoping that he's just going to wait forever and never open
Yeah,
up
he's
things
gonna-
for himself just to stay there where they are.
Right. Because to be fair, she has to do everything for him.
Yeah.
So maybe if she doesn't do this thing, he won't be able to go.
So she follows behind him, still in astonishment, and he starts climbing up the ladder towards the hatch. And she's like, well, he's never going to be able to lift the hatch. But as he's climbing up, the hatch opens on its own, and a bare-chested man glared down at them. The spread-winged raven tattooed on his chest was spattered with fresh blood, seemingly not his own. Slave tattoos sprawled across his face and down one side of his neck. The knife he held dripped red. Then his wide-eyed stare changed to a whoop of delight. Hey, Cap, come see what pretty birds I've found caged below. Come on up here and don't be slow. And they lift them out from the hatch. The satrap is like, hey, don't touch me, and pushes away, and he's thrown to the deck, and Malta is just trying her best not to incite any anger, and then helps the satrap stand.
And Satrap, true to his word of not being a coward, which laughable, is demanding that they treat him right. He says, you will all die for this. You will die. The satrap was puffing with a fury. Where is the captain? I demand to see the captain. Please be quiet, Malta begged him. And he did not listen. Silence, he spat at her. Stupid woman. Do not presume to tell me what to do. His eyes sparked with an anger, but his voice betrayed him with its shrillness. He set his fist to his hips. I demand that the captain be brought to me.
So another guy comes up and he's like, what did you find? Like, this is a finely feathered bird, rich merchant or noble blood, I'd say. Cosgo swelled his chest. I am the Magnadon Satrap Cosgo, ruler of all Jamaillia and heir to the Pearl Throne, and I demand to speak to the captain. Malta's hopes died within her. A smile split the man's freckled face. You are speaking to the captain. Captain Red. He swept a bow low and added purringly, At your service, great satrap, I'm sure. The man who had first discovered them laughed so hard he choked. Obviously, it's a pretty ridiculous claim.
Right.
It's like, yeah, right, the satrap.
Sure.
It's like, I mean the real captain, Captain Diari. Captain Red's grin went even wider. He dared a wink at Malta. Oh, I'm so sorry, Magnadon Satrap Cosgo. Captain Diari is presently entertaining the fish. In a stage whisper, he explained to Malta, That's what happens to men who don't know when to put their swords down, or men who lie to me. He waited.
Yeah, so obviously Cosgo, he's demanding to see the manager, and he's talking to the manager. So
Yes. He's talking to the man that just killed the manager he wants to talk to.
Yeah.
While his sailors are throwing other crewmen overboard, and there's just general mayhem from a battle.
I just don't understand his thought process here, because what would the captain do? You know, like, what would seeing the captain now do?
What's the thought process of any person in retail when they ask to see the manager about a discount that didn't work or something?
The coupon that's 8 months out of date, but they deserve to use it. Yeah.
They just want to be heard by someone they think is in charge. Maybe that's all the satrap wants. He just wants someone to talk to.
Yeah. I don't know. But, you know, nobody's believing him. Malta's just sort of watching this all unfold in horror.
Yeah.
Because this is really dangerous. This is a dangerous situation. Mm-hmm. And these are pirates, and they are going to kill them if things go wrong. And she just is watching Cosgo scream and ask for the captain.
Yeah. And he once again asserts, like, I am the satrap, ruler of all Jamaillia. And Captain Red spreads out his arms, looking around and says, yeah, and here are gathered all your loyal retainers and grand nobles to attend you on this remarkable voyage from where? Chalced? The satrap journeys from Chalced to Jamaillia? Cosgo's nostrils were pinched white with outrage. And he tries to explain the whole story, which sounds incredibly far-fetched and sums up the plot of his journey. I am returning from Bingtown. I went there to resolve a dispute between the old and new traders, but then I was kidnapped by the Bingtown traders and taken up the Rainwild River. The Rainwild traders, a race of folk so horribly deformed that they must constantly wear veils, held me captive in an underground city. I escaped during an earthquake and journeyed down the Rainwild River until I was rescued by a... So... The captain's making faces and everyone's laughing again because it is a ridiculous tale.
Right. But the captain has kind of heard enough. He wants the truth.
And he points his sword at him, right at his neck. Stop it now. Do stop, the captain pleaded merrily. We have work to do here, my men and I. Stop your jesting and tell the truth. The sooner you tell us your name and family, the sooner you can be ransomed back to them. You do want to go home, don't you? Or do you fancy you'd make a good addition to my crew? Cosgo looked wildly about at the circle of captors. When at last his eyes met Malta's, tears suddenly brimmed in them. Stop it, she said in a low voice. Leave him alone. He is the Magnadon satrap Cosgo, and he is far more valuable to you as a hostage if he does not have a cut throat. The blade's tip lifted from the satrap's throat. An instant later, it pressed between her breasts. She looked down on it, paralyzed. Someone else's blood was still on it. Captain Red slipped the tip under the lacing that secured her bodice. And you, of course, are the lovely and learned companion of his heart. Also, on your way back to Jamaillia, his gaze traveled over her slowly. His mockery broke her fear. She met his gaze furiously and spat a single word at a time. Don't be stupid. I am Malta Vestrit, a Bingtown trader's daughter. As wild as his tale sounds, he truly is Magnadon Satrap Cosgo. Kill him, and you will henceforth be known as the stupidest captain ever to discard a satrap's ransom. The captain roared out his delight, and his crew echoed him. And then the satrap says to Malta, "Don't anger him, wench."
Like, oh, I hate the satrap so much anyway, but especially she's saving you, you
Well,
jerk.
she is getting a little bit heated
but
in this.
well, okay, but you think that your little squawking of "let me see the manager now" is better?
Yeah, right.
Ugh.
So besides those two, there are 5 other prisoners, and the ship is fit to sail. So the captain's taking care of business with some of his other sailors, getting that organized. He says, "I think a prize this fat is enough to take us straight back to port, don't you? We've ranged a bit this time, and Divvytown will look good to us, hey?" So there are assenting nods, and he says, secure the other prisoners below decks. We'll see if we can get ransoms, get their names. These guys, though, meaning Malta and the satrap, will take them back to the motley with me. Even if he's not the satrap of all Jamaillia, I'll wager he brings a rich ransom from someone. A deft lift of his blade tip cut Malta's laces. She caught at the loose bodice of her dress and held it to her, gasping in outrage. The captain only grinned. As for the lady, she shall have dinner with Captain Stupid and tell me whatever tale she pleases. Bring her along. So again, she is going into the lion's den, but not treated as a regular prisoner, at least.
Right.
She gets to speak to the captain. And Captain Red is one of those that I can't remember if he was freed from a slave ship and then given a ship by Kennit, or if he was part of like a skew and given a ship. I feel like it might have been a skew.
I think he was in a skew.
Okay. Yeah. So, I don't think he was ever freed, and I don't think he was part of Kennit's crew originally.
No. But I do think, I think he was a skew because Motley, the ship name, I'm pretty sure is the one that Kennit ran aground in a skew.
Yeah. He definitely like took the ship over, sailed to a skew, and gave him stuff. So that's probably Captain Red.
Yeah.
And I think we had stories earlier about him that Kennit was impressed with Captain Red's initiative because he had captured multiple ships for the Raven fleet already.
I agree. I'm pretty sure that's who this is.
Okay.
And I don't know. Yeah, I feel like this is a scary situation for Malta, but maybe a better one to be in because it's not Chalcedean people, so she has better chance of being seen as a human, but she's still a woman in a very dangerous situation. And so
I skipped it over it a bit, but I think in this chapter she mentions that she prefers the known danger to the unknown.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is something that is very terrifying for her because while Chalcedeans will respect the satrap's power, pirates don't give a crap.
Right.
She has no protections.
Yeah. Yeah. And she doesn't know the culture of the people that have captured her enough to know what they expect or what they normally do and be able to play into that to her best advantage. She's really going in with nothing.
And this is even worse timing for Reyn and Tintaglia because they just got information that she's traveling south to Jamaillia through the Inside Passage, and now they're going to take a little turn and go to Divvytown, so they're going to be chasing the wrong ships.
Yes. So, not great, but we're trying. It's the book is about halfway done, so she can't be about to be rescued.
Right. I know.
There had to be something.
There has to be other things. I think they meet in the last 3 chapters of this book. So.
I know. Honestly, I feel like I forgot most of the events that happened in this book.
There are a lot of little things that happen. I remember the big beats, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
the multiple ships that they get captured and put on.
And I think, obviously, I know, like you said, the big beats. I know the big things that are going to happen, but I feel like some of this stuff I thought was a lot shorter and she is found quicker or whatever is happening was a quick little thing, and it's being drawn out more than I remember. So I think it's really interesting to come back to it and be like, oh, wait, what is this? What's happening now?
But this is how Malta and Althea meet up.
Yeah.
Because Malta eventually negotiates for Jamaillia's trade routes through Pirate Isles, I think, and recognizing the Pirate Isles with Kennit.
Mm-hmm.
And Althea is trying to negotiate for Bingtown's stuff.
Yeah. So 2 sides of that coin again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this chapter is fine. There's nothing like crazy going on, in my opinion. It's a chapter that catches up with what they're doing to survive and like the next steps, but it's not super interesting to me. It's like a next step for me. It's just kind of like a stepping stone of just like, okay. It's an interesting look into Malta's mind and her development as a character, with the brief conversation and questions about Chalcidian roles.
Right.
But that's about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's a good look at magic a little bit more and Malta. And I don't know. I feel like Malta has gotten to the point where I like her now.
Yeah.
And that's been really nice. Probably for a while now. But I think now it's more...
Now she actually is the underdog, striving against and using her wiles to survive.
And doing it for the good instead of... I don't know. It's still for her own gain. It just feels better now to root for it, I guess. I don't know. And maybe that says more about me. Yeah. But I think this chapter is fine. I probably will forget it again, but it's good to have the information.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. As always, please let us know your thoughts on the chapters, on the books, on whatever meme you might want to send to us. If you have or a joke, send us your pets, send us cosplays, send us art, whatever you want. We're always interested to hear from you guys. And you can message us at isfitshappy on any of our social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Threads, Blue Sky. Did I miss any? YouTube, Spotify, I think has comments as well.
I think that's
and
it.
Reddit. And then you can email us at isfitshappy@gmail.com as well. Again, thank you so much and hope to hear from you soon.
All right, just a quick little chat today for our favorite portion, which is talking about what you've brought to our attention.
But as usual now, I do want to give a quick thanks to Anonymous, who tipped us. So whoever you are out there, whoever's listening, thank you so much. Really appreciate your support.
Yes, thank you so much. But now we're going to talk about a message we got from
Anna. We got an email from Anna a little bit ago now, so we apologize that we haven't talked about it yet. But this is an interesting topic in general and probably interesting and longer conversation than just kind of one question would have.
Yeah.
So Anna's doesn't really have a specific question, but is more asking about the nature of prophets and their catalysts and
the role that they play with each other.
Yeah, if a prophet needs to interact with a catalyst in order to affect change, etc. And Anna cites a couple different things, like how Amber is always looking for Wintrow, the 9-fingered slave boy.
Yes.
But doesn't find him. And Wintrow frees the serpent anyways, like She Who Remembers. But Anna also talks about how when Beloved is with Fitz, Anna's pretty sure that they need to be together for Fitz to make the changes that he does. So it's just kind of an open conversation about that relationship.
Yeah, and I think it is really interesting to think about because Amber does go through a little bit of change after Wintrow frees She Who Remembers. She does get the sickness, meaning that the path is correct and she has done something.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that really interesting because what has she done? What
does it mean that she did something?
Yeah.
Does it?
I don't know.
Right. It just means that the path is followed, right? Some crucial moment has passed. That's what we assume, at least. Some crucial moment has passed and is the correct option was chosen. But does that necessarily mean that she had to do something in order for that to happen? Which is kind of the topic. Because I don't think so.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know. Because then I guess it really pulls into question, is the prophet needed for Fitz? You know, like if Beloved wasn't around with Fitz, would Fitz still make all the same decisions?
So here's the thing. This is my overarching belief on this. It's that the prophet isn't needed at all.
Okay.
100% not needed. If the prophet just sat alone in a room for 10 years, maybe, potentially, all the correct choices could have been made. But the prophet knows those choices need to be made, and so does their best to influence those choices, the correct ones to be made. Because the fool talks about how the philosophy of the white prophets, basically, that everyone has a chance to change the world, right?
Right.
A butterfly flying in a different direction can change things dramatically. So the prophet is there to try and guide those choices into the correct path. But as we see, and as Anna brought up, Wintrow just makes the correct decision anyways. And that didn't need any guidance. So people are capable of doing those choices. But I think what makes the Fitz and Beloved relationship even more special is how unlikely Fitz's survival actually is throughout the whole thing. And that's why Beloved is like, hey, every single future that I see that is good, you are alive. And that's like one future out of millions.
Right.
So need to get you through all of them somehow. So
Okay.
that's why I think Beloved feels more necessary in those Fitz books. And because it's the Fitz books, right? We're from Fitz's point of view, and he is a beloved and necessary character and friend to Fitz. So he features very prominently. The Fool features very prominently from Fitz's point of view. So we get a lot of the importance of Beloved to Fitz as a human. And from a philosophical standpoint or, prophetic standpoint, I think that friendship does influence Fitz's decisions in a positive way. And I think that's what the Fool initially wanted to do, is befriend this bastard kid to make the future correct. But then the Fool kind of fell in love with him, became really good friends with him, and Fitz got attached to him too. So they're closer than expected.
Right.
So the Tawny Man comes along, and it's really weird situation because the Fool is convinced that he's going to die at the end of everything, and he does. But then he's saved and doesn't really have any more futures after that to see.
Yeah.
So it's a really weird relationship between everything, but that's kind of my thoughts overall, is that the prophet is not needed for the correct future to go on its way. It's just extremely unlikely in this specific case, because we don't know about other futures or other prophets and how unlikely their chances were. But in this case, it's extremely unlikely for Beloved's future to turn out properly if Beloved is not there to influence. And that's why Wintrow making these correct decisions, or maybe not all the correct decisions, because the dragons that hatch aren't, fully formed immediately.
Right.
And maybe that was one of the outcomes that could have happened, is that the baby dragons that had to crawl out were correctly formed later on.
Yeah.
So maybe some wrong decisions happened in this trilogy, but the fact that Wintrow made some of those correct decisions is awesome, and a small percentage chance of happening. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I feel like, I feel like I don't know. It's hard to put into, into words how I feel about the prophets, because on the one hand, I do think they're important, but I feel like there is that special relationship between Fitz and Beloved with importance levels.
Yeah.
And maybe the way I see it is sort of similar to you, where with Fitz, there was so little chance of the good outcome that that extra help is needed. And maybe that's the thing that happens when you have like the catalyst, right? He's mentioned as the catalyst. He is
Right.
capital T, capital C, the capitalist, or the catalyst, not capitalist.
Fitz is a great capitalist.
Yeah, he loves capitalism.
Starting businesses left and right, making papers, making inks, writing histories.
Yeah, okay. So he's the catalyst.
He's the future textbook provider for all the universities, and he's upcharging the prices.
Okay. He's the catalyst, and he is creating changes, but his changes are the ones that truly change the world in big, big ways. I think other people can change the world, but it's more of a domino, like a little domino effect where they have to make the right decisions and the person after them has to make some of the right decisions. Whereas with Fitz, he's the big domino. If he makes a decision, it shifts everything, not just starts this shift.
Yeah.
And I think with that, a prophet is still important because they could pick anyone and start off that domino chain.
Right.
And I think how I think about this is in the last trilogy when Bee and Beloved are talking when they first meet about how Bee can see the different strands and how she wants to tell this woman to run away with the man. And Beloved points out, yeah, but look, if you follow it this way, they could die. Or if they don't die, then this patrol is never started. And what's better for the community? And who are you to say? So it's better not to play with their futures. Let them decide.
Right.
And whatever happens, happens. But you could, as a catalyst, see all the different options and say, okay, I'm going to help you reach your goal. I'm going to make sure that every decision you make is the one that gets you to your goal.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think.
So why do you think that Amber was going after Wintrow so badly? He was another kind of big domino that she could have helped push in certain directions. And she kind of had to settle for Althea and Paragon.
I don't know. I don't think that Wintrow is a big domino. I think he's bigger than others, but I don't think he's the big domino. And honestly, I kind of think it was for selfish reasons that Beloved seeks out Wintrow. I think Amber wants to be part of the bringing back of dragons. That's their life mission, is to bring the dragons back. And if she were to find Wintrow, she gets to see all of the actions that bring back dragons, right? She gets to ensure that it happens the right way and make sure that every little decision is something that she has her hands in. But she's not needed for it to happen. It's already been...
It's not needed with Wintrow because Wintrow chose the right things.
Right. Everything like lined up good, which might not have happened. There's a chance, obviously. But I think it is more of a selfish... She just wanted to be there. She wanted to see the domino fall, for the next portion. And I don't necessarily know that she had to be there. It's more that she just wanted to, which is fair. I mean, you want to see your life work be created. And
the way that I view it, and who Amber or Beloved or the Fool, whoever it is, wants to be by, is whoever has the least likely chance to succeed.
Interesting.
Because then they have the best chance of influencing the correct way. And with the least likely chance to succeed, you make the biggest splash. Like you said, Fitz is the big domino because it was so unlikely that he even survive, let alone make some of the decisions that he did or do some of the actions that he did. So him surviving is the big domino because it was such a small chance of it happening to begin with. And I think that's the same with Wintrow, is that some of the other things probably could have played out very similar in Bingtown. She was an advocate for Paragon, sure, took an active role in that, but eventually I think Brashen and Althea would be sailing on Paragon to save Vivacia. I feel like that's just kind of like the logical conclusion of that, even if it's a chance of not working out. I think what Wintrow went through is a lot less likely to turn out okay. I don't know, a lot of little things and a lot of little quirks of character stayed the hand that was going to kill Wintrow multiple times.
To be fair, too, I mean, there's a chance that Wintrow would have died with Beloved's interference because I feel like Beloved believes
I don't think Beloved would have survived Kennit.
Yeah, true. But I feel like Beloved is the kind of person that death is worth it. Like the trolley problem depends on what the outcome of the trolley, where the trolley's going. Like, well, I'll kill those 3 people if the trolley goes where I want it to go, sort of vibe.
Yeah.
So,
but if there's a chance that the trolley kills the one person and goes to the same destination, I'll take that chance.
Exactly. Like Beloved doesn't want the death, but also isn't opposed to death happening. So maybe with Beloved's interference, Wintrow would have died.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's all just a thought exercise, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, Anna, it's a very interesting conversation because we don't get any solid answers about this, about the relationship and about how it works. We're just given drops of hints of their beliefs.
Do you know, maybe the one hint that we get is that Beloved, even though Beloved is the true white of their time, is still a diluted version of what the original whites were. Yeah. Right? So whites used to be different than Beloved is.
Whole completely different race.
So maybe part of the fact that Beloved isn't super needed is because Beloved isn't a true white. I mean, I don't know. They're a white for sure, but they're not the original version. And so I don't know. I don't know how to explain that better than maybe they're not needed because they aren't.
Yeah, but
the fully formed.
The Fool is unique amongst whites, though, too. Because there's a lot of whites that are born on Claris.
Yes.
A lot of have those traits. I mean, Illustor, for example, the Pale Lady, has prophetic dreams, too. But the Fool is unique amongst other whites. So I don't think even the ancient race of the whites that is extinct now, I think some of them were just normal whites, and some of them, rarely, once a generation, also was a prophet.
Okay.
So that's my opinion, at least. We don't know anything about the race, really, but I feel like it's similar to what's going on now, is that sometimes that manifests, and there's, once per generation.
Right.
The white prophet.
Well, and maybe in the fact that the genetics or whatever that creates these whites have diluted over time.
Right.
Maybe that means that the ability to see what choices to make has also been diluted. And so that's why Beloved can't always have the right answer and doesn't always find the right thing.
Yeah. It's also confusing to look through all the futures.
Yeah, it is. There's so many. It's like a big tapestry.
Yeah.
It's constantly changing. So, yeah, I don't know. Good question, Anna. Sorry, we can't answer it. I mean, I don't think you expected us to, but that was our thoughts on it. Thank you for writing in. And thank you, everyone who interacts with us and writes in or just listens. We really appreciate all of you. And we look forward to talking to you next week.